As many regular readers are aware, I'm somewhat of an aviation enthusiast and spent some time in my early 20s around airbases just marvelling at the technological wonders of warbirds. I could watch all forms of aircraft all day and would never cease to have that wonder as that heavy hunk of metal cuts through the sky. Being inside one, well, that's a different story, as my recent trip to Nintendo Live would attest. So flight simulator games are about as close as I like to get to flying these days, and Aerofly FS Flight Simulator promises to be a highly realistic flight sim for casual gamers and enthusiasts alike. What's it like? Press your captain's uniform, put on your aviators, and this is your captain speaking, we're looking to have a good flight, as we review Aerofly FS Flight Simulator for Nintendo Switch. Normally, this is a part of the video where I'd ask you to like and subscribe, but instead I wanted to talk about Movember. What's It Like is throwing its support behind my good friend Archie, who is leading the charge for Movember, which aims to take on mental health issues, suicide, prostate cancer, and testicular cancer. If you would like to know more or want to donate to his campaign, click on the card that's just popped up on your video. Now, let's get back to it. Aerofly FS Flight Simulator utilizes similar technology to Microsoft Flight Simulator, allowing you to pick any point on a map and just start flying from there. You do have to be online for this to work, and there is only a small section of San Francisco that is playable offline. We've seen a similar premise with Aero Flight Simulator, and it's quite an amazing concept to be able to fly anywhere in the world in the palm of your hands. Aerofly FS Flight Simulator has an advantage over its platform-specific competition because it offers a range of 31, hopefully, licensed aircraft and a more structured approach to gameplay, with 81 challenges on top of the free flight mode. There are thousands of airports all over the globe where you can plan and plot flights, including time and weather conditions, as well as a real-time day and night system, and it has a more sim-like experience thanks to a myriad of assist options that make flying as easy or as difficult as you would like it to be. There are some amazing gameplay features in Aerofly FS Flight Simulator, mainly being able to touch everything in the cockpit thanks to its touchscreen controls. You can slide the throttle up in handheld mode, select a dial to turn it, and even accidentally shut down essential aircraft systems mid-flight. Inside of the cockpit, Aerofly FS Flight Simulator does a lot to impress its pilots. Unfortunately, outside of it, Aerofly FS Flight Simulator is a different story. And that's the problem with this game, because Aerofly FS Flight Simulator is a lot of, on this hand, we have something fantastic, but on this hand, it's awful. And you'll be hearing this a lot during the review. The game either does things extremely well or absolutely terribly, and there doesn't seem to be an in-between. Let's start with the graphics. Aerofly FS Flight Simulator features gorgeous aircraft models, highly detailed interiors, and amazing lighting effects. While considering the technical limitations of Switch's aging hardware, its incredibly impressive visuals inside the aircraft made me forget what console I was playing on. The aircraft themselves are high poly and high quality, showing some incredibly detailed exteriors as well. But then we get to the scenery, which has a texture resolution to rival the Nintendo 64 era of games, making anything on the ground almost impossible to discern. Even flying over Sydney City, the engine confuses it for mountainous terrain and reduces Sydney to a mess of textured hills. The game also has sightseeing tours that you can fly, and I tried to discover the Hoover Dam, only to realise I had already flown over it, and instead of it being an actual rendered landmark, it was just a splotch of white below me. Compare this game to Aero Flight Simulator, a game I reviewed over a year ago, which features a much higher resolution on-the-ground textures, and it becomes abundantly clear that Aerofly FS Flight Simulator just looks terrible. And it's such a shame, because as part of the fun of flight sims is the sightseeing aspect, And while Aerofly FS Flight Simulator looks serviceable at 15,000 feet, the lower your aircraft goes, the lower my graphics score slides. Most airports do have 3D buildings planted on top of these textures, but even looking out onto the runway makes you often question what you're actually looking at. And then we get to the gameplay. An Aerofly FS Flight Simulator has an excellent flight model that feels similar to Microsoft Flight Sim in terms of handling and offers a smooth flying experience, as well as takeoff and landing, provided you can see the runway of course, feels rewarding. The touchscreen elements add a deep level of immersion. Each aircraft has a different responsive feel depending on the type, with airliners lazily banking into turns while jet fighters perform much wilder moves and gliders just ride the air currents peacefully. But then we have the flight guides for the challenges and predetermined flight paths that bring the immersion cracking down. Flight paths and guides are often not achievable on takeoff due to them being too high halfway down the runway, or they simply guide you directly into a mountain by clipping right into them. Sometimes these markers just appear under the terrain, making them impossible to follow. While these guides are just that, a guide, it's the poor level of polish on top of the awful textures that further brings this title down on the Switch platform. For my pilots looking into accessibility, there are a range of flight assists to help keep you airborne, as well as touchscreen controls and AI co-pilots to help your flight go smoothly. There aren't really any visual options or accessibility specific options, so as always, I recommend doing further research to see if Aerofly FS Flight Simulator suits your needs. At just under $40, Aerofly FS Flight Simulator doesn't quite hit the mark when it comes to its value for money. While the core mechanics are there, the muddled textures, glitch flight paths, and overall lack of polish make it very hard to recommend for everyone, except for the die-hard flight sim enthusiast. There's no joy in sightseeing as there's nothing to see, and while the aircraft models look fantastic, there's no point flying them over a muddled mess of low-resolution Google Maps. I sincerely hope that we get an update for Aerofly FS Flight Simulator, which would easily raise it to the best flight sim on Switch. But until then, it's just grounded by cheaper eShop options that are out there. So, what's it like? Aerofly FS Flight Simulator is like Microsoft Flight Sim, but handheld. I award it a 58 out of 100. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. The best way that you can support What's It Like is by liking and subscribing. And for the month of November, I'm donating all my channel earnings to my good friend Archie's Movember campaign. So if you've just watched this video, you're already doing your part.